All right, good morning, YouTube. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the myth of motivation. So, for some reason, and very recently, a lot of people have just been asking me what keeps me motivated to go to the gym. And this is a question that I've had many people ask throughout my life, but for whatever reason, many people, my bosses, coworkers, and just friends, new friends that I'm meeting and making, they always ask me, like, what motivates you to keep training? And every single time this was asked, especially in the past, I always just kind of gave like a bullshit non-answer for a couple reasons. For one, it's not anyone's business. Like, it is a very private thing that actually should purport like that should allow you to go to the gym. It can be, or it doesn't have to be. Like, I don't think like it's fine if you tell people like why you go to the gym as long as you're honest about it, and I mean honest with yourself about it more than anything else. But most of the time I would just give like I said, a non-answer. I would give something that's just like mostly a joke, something they can't really that's something they just laugh at and then move on. So usually I would say something like, oh, like I work out because I eat too much, or I work out because if my stomach gets smaller my dick looks bigger, something like that, you know. Um, if I give an answer like that, though, there's really nothing they can take from it to actually use and think about for themselves. I mean, I don't want people thinking about my, you know. Anyway, part of the reason why I don't really like this question is because the quality of the answer you receive will always be in proportion to the quality of the question you ask. And you are asking about motivation, which, in my opinion, is self-defeating bullshit. So you're asking a question about self-defeating bullshit, you will get a self-defeating bullshit answer most of the time, which is why motivation, generally speaking, is a myth. It is something that you should, something that you, like when you read or watch or get influence from these motivational videos and whatnot. Like, it might light a fire under your ass, but it's a very fleeting feeling. So it's kind of like when you're inspired by a story, a movie, or something like that. It's not what actually propels you forward and keeps you moving forward. So motivation is a myth. And I remember when I was growing up, one of the most popular videos, I think this was one of the first viral videos when it comes to motivation content on YouTube, was a video by Eric Thomas, where he says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. And a lot of people have taken this to the grave, but I don't think it's because of that, let's say, mindset that they actually were able to make success. So they were successful in spite of holding that belief rather than because of it. Because you're not always drowning. Like in that video, he uses the example of someone, he's asking what does it take to be successful. So his teacher tells him go to the beach at 6 a.m. and then he goes out into the water, keep going out to the water, keep going out to the water, and then he grabs his head and puts him underwater. And then he says, and when he's just about to pass out, he lifts him back up and says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, that is when you'll be successful. The reason why this is bullshit is because in what situation, honestly, in our modern lives, are we actually drowning? Now, we could say, oh, we could be metaphorically drowning in the weight of our own despair. And it's just like, shut the fuck up. Like, no one really actually thinks like that on a daily basis. And if they do, they have other problems that they need to address and resolve. So, you as a gym goer, or just as someone who's trying to develop themselves, you really should not be comparing yourself to anyone else. You shouldn't be comparing yourself to someone like an Elon Musk and Arnold Schwarzenegger or Jeff Bezos. You are not them. Also, you should not rely on motivation of people calling you a moron, a lion, a Spartan, a warrior. These are not things that you want to adopt upon yourself, because you're just adding unnecessary pressure to the pursuit of just developing yourself, developing your body, developing your mind. If you add these things into it, eventually you're going to get swayed into thinking, I am not enough, I need to be doing more because Spartans did this, Warriors did this, Lions did this, like Jeff Bezos did this, Arnold did this, and then you're just thinking to yourself, what am I doing? I'm not doing enough. But here's the thing, if you are improving yourself, you are doing more than enough. So when it comes to motivation, when it comes to what keeps me going to the gym, the general answer that I give people is, or I think a general answer that I would like to give people and what I think is a useful um, building point is, what will you say when life asks you why? When you are sore, when you have nothing better to do, but at the same time you don't want to do anything either, and you have to kind of like ask yourself, why do I want to go to the gym? It is very easy to be nihilistic and be very morally relativistic and just say, well, it doesn't really matter because in 1,000 years, nothing I do will matter anyway. Everyone I know, everyone who will have remembered me will have forgotten about me and it won't matter at all. Now, people think that this type of nihilism and cynicism is a sign of intelligence or wisdom, and it is not. Cynicism feigns wisdom. It is pseudo wisdom. It is really easy, and it is like the reason why this is such a stupid argument is because it's the easiest argument you could possibly make, because any fool can expand his time frame so large that it just does not matter what he does. But here's the thing, it matters right now, don't it? This is why I guess being present in the moment and mindfulness kind of can get annoying, is because there's something true about it, which is you have to live in the moment and you have to live for right now, because this is the only time where it will actually matter. So why not treat it like it matters? Because it matters right now. Who cares if it matters in 1,000 years? The 1,000 years, people aren't thinking about you, but the people around you, the person, like every time you look in the mirror, you think about it. So it matters right now. Do something about it. So cynicism, it feigns wisdom, but I will say that it does precede it, because you don't want to be naive and then believe things without really knowing why you believe them. But the thing is, you don't just want to stop at cynicism. The wisdom that comes after cynicism is more prudent than the wisdom that comes from just being naive. But what will you say when life asks you why? That is the question that I posed to some people when they kind of asked me like what I did. I think this was in one of my seminar classes, and oftentimes people would kind of give the answer, well, I just want to be happy. And that's a great answer, but one thing I would say is like, so I would ask them like, so happiness is the goal? And then it said, so a fleeting emotion, something that you kind of can't really force, something that will leave you unexpectedly, something that will come to you unexpectedly, is the goal. So you're making this very hard to hit moving target the goal. And they said, well, what's the point of doing something if you're not happy? And I replied, well, isn't that is exactly the question I'm asking. What will you say to do something that you know you need to do when you're not happy doing it? When you would just rather sit on the couch, eat pizza, eat chips, watch your favorite movie, watch a new anime. What are you going to do when it's time to go to the gym, lace up your shoes, and actually train? Because you'd be more happy and you would much more enjoy just taking the path of least resistance, but you're not going to be proud of yourself as a result. So should happiness be the goal? I leave that up to you to decide. Well, what about to, and then someone would ask, well, what if I just want to, well, essentially delay suffering or ease my suffering? I don't want to feel bad. So it's like aversion to negative feelings. And which I would ask, okay, so what will you do when you're not under pressure? What will you do when you're no longer forced to do something? Because you're basically saying, as long as this threat exists, I'm going to mitigate it. But now the threat is gone. What are you going to do then? So this is something that a lot of people who get out of the military face, which is after the military, they're just like, you know what? I don't have to do any more PT tests. I don't need to be heighted and weighted anymore. So I'm just going to get as big and as fat as I possibly can. Now I'm a lot bigger than I was when I was in the military, but I'm still very fit. I'm still training very often. So like just defending myself a little bit preemptively. But this is why like you kind of run into those young military vets who are fat as fuck, because the military just left such a huge bad, like a really bad taste in their mouth when it comes to fitness and training, because um, it was not something that was communicated to be on their benefit. It was just something to, they were just trying to do it so that way they don't get negatively impacted in their careers. And once that threat was gone, they have zero reason to continue doing it. That is kind of like was another reason why I don't like that mentality of, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, when you're drowning, then you will be successful. That is not it at all. Because if you are outside of that situation, what are you going to do? Are you always going to live in this state of perpetual stress or distress um, or something like that all of the time, just because you're like, oh, that's what it takes to be successful? Like, to me, you just sound like a dumbass who's going to run into a brick wall head first and be very upset they didn't break enough teeth. So that's something you should really think about. And then let's go with another possible answer. Oh, it's to open doors of possibility. Or so it's like I want to have more opportunities in my life and whatnot. And then it's like, okay, that's great. That's great. What are you gonna do when you fail? Like, failure happens, you know. You'll fail doing things you like, and you'll fail doing things you hate too. So what are you gonna do then? What is actually going to keep you going? What it like after failure? What is going to keep you going? When the promise of happiness isn't there, what's going to keep you going? When the promise of, or when the threat of, or any type of pressure is no longer there, what's going to keep you going? And then you might say to yourself, it's to give myself and the people I love a better life. And then that's great, that's noble. But here's the thing, what happens when this goes unrewarded? Because it's going to go unrewarded for quite a while before you actually see results. So there's going to come a time where you get hit this dip and, let's say, progress, and then you have to really think to yourself like, no one's really even appreciating this, and you aren't even appreciating it all that much because you're not seeing as much results as you would like to because your expectations are all over the place. And then you're going to have to ask yourself again, what will you say when life asks you why? And eventually, in my opinion, what I have found is that there's just one answer. You made a promise to yourself. And if you value yourself, you will value the promise you made. Now, this is a lot to unpack because there's in this one single sentence, there's a couple things. One, you need to value yourself. If you see yourself as a creature of value, a person of value, just to yourself, I don't know, don't be too arrogant and narcissistic or whatnot, but if you actually value yourself, it becomes a lot easier to do the things you need to do because you're doing it for you. If you don't see value in yourself, honestly, so you know, like we live in a very weird time where we are like so narcissistic, but at the same time so insecure. And it is just strange to see. But if you truly value yourself, if you actually see yourself as a person worth caring about, as a person who has a future, as a person who means something to someone, you will do it because you know you need to. And at a certain point, the simpler answer is always going to be the better one. If every time I run into someone who's just like, oh, just well, because I want to, they don't really, they have like, the reason why they have such mental fortitude is because there's very little logic and questions you can throw at them that's going to throw them off. It's like, well, why do you train? Because I want to. Well, what if it doesn't make you happy? Well, I just still want to do it. Well, what, like, does it make your life easier or whatever? I mean, maybe, but I just want to do it. Like, that simple mindedness that is very, that mental fortitude from just simplicity, that is what you should be striving for, in my opinion. So, like I mentioned earlier, I do not like the idea that you want to treat wanting success as if you, the same way you want to treat breathing when you're drowning. I don't like that at all. Instead, it is treating your success or your discipline as a bodily function like breathing. You breathe when, like, all throughout your day, all throughout your life. You can't, if you stop breathing, you're just gonna die or pass out. So rather than trying to want success as bad as you want to breathe when you're drowning, you want to treat success and discipline as a bodily function when you're like breathing. So you cannot live without the thing that gives you life, the thing that gives you life in every breath. What is that thing for you? For most of us, it's going to be training. For whatever reason, strength, size, the pursuit of these things, it sustains our life, it sustains our being. For someone else, it could be art, music, painting, I guess sports, gaming, if they are, you know, depends. But it could be anything. What gives you life in every breath? That is the thing that you need to honor, is that's the thing you need to treat as breathing. Because it doesn't matter if you're drowning, it doesn't matter if you're tired or beat up, you need to breathe. And how do you put life in every single breath? So if you can turn your discipline into a bodily function like breathing, you want it to be something like the feeling of needing to piss in the morning. It's something that is a bodily function that you need to partake in, essentially. Like, you need to piss eventually. Or if someone throws a ball at your head, you either catch it or you dodge it. It's a reflex. Your training should be like a reflex. You want to build up your habit, and want to build up your lifestyle as a habit, a reflex, as something you have practiced and learned and mastered for such a long time that eventually it's just part of who you are, part of your day, part of your plans. and it is a essential constant or given for what your day is going to be like. And the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. So I'm not perfect by any means. This is something that I have to work on for myself as well. Like, it's something that, like, I'm included in this. These are things that I'm telling myself just as much as I'm telling you, because these are things that I need to constantly think about. Sometimes in my own head, I'll be thinking about, like, well, why am I doing this? And I will run through each of those answers or questions and answer it with another question being like, well, if you do it because you want to be happy, what are you going to do when it stops making you happy? Whatever. I run myself through those same questions. I screen myself through this same lens, and I come to this point, which I'm about to get to now, which is how to actually be motivated, which is truly asking how do I actually be disciplined? And let's get into that. So first, you do need a goal. You actually do need a goal. Don't think that just because I was being critical of, how people will say, like, oh, if you have a strong enough why, you can do this. Like, yes, you need a goal, because a why is usually a goal. But here's the thing: if you do not have a goal, so no goal, no positive emotion. Any positive emotion you feel comes as a direct result of pursuing and perceiving progress toward a valued goal. If you don't have that, you can't experience positive emotion. That's why happiness is something that you really have to be careful of, because if you just make happiness the goal, it's something that's moving all the time. So how do you actually progress toward it? You can't. So there's that. And then going back into my original point with this, I guess, is that the goal cannot be your why. If you really buy into that idea that, oh, if you have a strong enough why, you're going to be fine, you're going to accomplish things, then we would just tell, like for example, it's a pretty damn strong why to be like, I do this for myself and I do this for my family. That's a pretty damn strong why. But if you have met humans for any given time, you'll know that they might hold that why in their mind, but it's not something that is enough to actually make them do things, because a lot of things get in the way. A lot of things make it harder than it really is. And you could argue like, oh, that just means they're not dedicated or whatever enough. And I don't know. I tend to be on the more empathic side of things, generally speaking. But the goal cannot be your why. The more you aim at it, the more you're going to miss it. Because when you make the goal your why, it becomes your measuring stick also. And that is where it becomes very dangerous. Because if your goal is your measuring stick, you're always falling short. How motivated, how disciplined can you feel? How much positive emotion can you feel if you're always perceiving a failure to live up to your goal? Because honestly, a goal is something you should fail to live up to, but it's something you want to pursue anyway, because what you accomplish on the way is greater than anything you could accomplish otherwise. The thing that should be your measuring stick is the work and consistency you put into it. This leads me to my second point. Don't rely on any form of external motivation. External motivation is complete and utter bullshit. The more you, or let's start with this. External, let's say, factors, external motivations, these things fluctuate. The value of these things fluctuate. But valuing yourself is something that can remain constant. If you truly believe you're a person of value, then this is something that is much more stable across time to actually get you to do the things you need to do. And here's another thing. The more you value external things, this is just you collecting things to blame later. It's like, oh, I do this for my family. And then eventually it's just like, you never appreciate what I do. And then, or I do this because I want money. It's like, why the fuck am I still broke? Like, you're gonna think to yourself, like, I don't have enough this, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough, like, equipment, I don't have the right equipment, I don't have the right people in my corner, like, it's all these things that just are outside of you that are the reason why you're not doing what you need to do. And how weak is that? So, and here's another thing. You cannot shame or guilt your way forward. This is how a lot of, just like mental sicknesses, like, not gonna say mental illness because that's a separate thing, but just a sickness of the brain where it's kind of like a more acute thing. Like, not cute, but acute, like temporary. Like this kind of cognitive dissonance that takes place where you just think to yourself, like, I really don't like myself right now, but I'm going to try to make myself better. Eventually, it's just going to run into that same issue of you're always falling short. You stop yourself from feeling any type of positive emotion. You rob yourself of rewarding yourself with progress, and then now you're just going to end up hating yourself more and more. That's why you cannot shame or guilt your way forward. This is why and here's another thing. In a lot of philosophies, cultures, and I guess ways of life. Something that is very key to all of them is remembering that you are dying. Stoicism, Buddhism, Bushido, I think to an extent even Christianity, they all have like this kind of idea that you want to live as if you are dead or dying. You are a dead man walking. I kind of like the way Bushido kind of frames it, and because it's kind of like every morning you want to groom yourself because every morning you have the possibility of dying, and when someone comes across your body, you want them to look at you and say, damn, this well-groomed man was on his way to do something great. And if you kind of make a mess of yourself, you have like you're just messy all the time, and someone comes across your corpse, they'll think to themselves like, this man was beating off and eating pizza last night. Like, you don't want to do that. Essentially, you want to having died moving forward. You want to die having lived. You want to die in service of what you believe to be the highest ideal for you, and that can be a lot of things. It doesn't have to be training, but training can be part of that ideal. So this kind of just wraps up what I think you should take away from all of this. There's a lot of things like I would hope that you rewatch this video as often as you need to come to your own conclusion. You know, like finding information out there that allows you to come to your own conclusion that will work for you, that will generate results for you. The first thing is know yourself. You have to know yourself. The key concept behind my brand, I guess you could say, is start where you stand. That's why this channel is called Stand Strength. That is why on my website the first thing you see is an excerpt from my favorite poem, Start Where You Stand. Oftentimes people will try to make a goal and they will make a plan to go from point A to point B, but they're not even at fucking point A. They cannot identify point A for shit, and they think that they're going to actually get to point B when in reality they're all the way back there and God knows where, and like if they take the wrong step they just fall off even deeper. But point B hasn't changed, so they're thinking that they can still just go to it. No. Point A is where you stand. We think we start where we stand, but we really don't. Really be honest with yourself. Learn about yourself and know yourself. And finally, get to the point where you train because it has to be done, because it is a part of you. It is like breathing, not when you're drowning, but just like breathing day to day. From the moment you wake up, life in every breath. Don't be thinking too deeply about this. Think as deeply as you need to for whatever moment you're in, because there are going to be times where you will need a why. When I was in basic training, this is where, like one of the first, like, because I was a young kid, this is one of the first times where I was really faced with that dilemma of, why the fuck am I even here? As people were yelling at me, as I was shitting in a hole, as I was like going a week without showering while in the field, like, and sleeping with bugs, spiders, and whatever next to me in 100+ degree weather, in 100+ or in 100% humidity. I had to really ask myself, why the fuck am I even doing this? Now, I wish I had that simple mental fortitude of being like, well, I just have to do it. But in all honesty, sometimes you will run into some situations where you have to think to yourself, well, I actually do want to give someone I care about a better life, and that might push you forward. But the thing is, you can't rely on that every single situation. There will come a time where you just need to revert back to that simple-mindedness of because it needs to be done. Every now and then, when life asks you why, one of those answers or one of those questions posed earlier, well, to be happy, that might get you forward to the next day. That might get you forward to the next step. To do it for another person, that might get you to the next step. But there's always limitations to all of this. And eventually it will just come down to, I do it because it needs to be done. That is why motivation is a myth. That is why discipline needs to be built. And you have to learn to be loyal, not only to the way that got you to where you want to be, but also to yourself. That is why when I mentioned earlier, if you promise yourself, if you make a promise to yourself, but you don't really value yourself, then the value of a promise goes down and the ability of you to fulfill it will just be non-existent essentially. Value yourself, know yourself, and do things because they need to be done. That's it for this video. My name is Carlos the King, standstrength.com. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out the website. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and start where you stand. I need to work on this outro, but I hope you liked the video. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.